Sadly, due to the current circumstances, we were unable to perform a modernised adaptation of the John Gay production The Beggar's Opera. I still decided upon portraying the character I was cast as due to having spent previous weeks of rehearsals and learning in depth about my character before the production had to get cancelled. The character I have chosen to present is this quirky, mischievous MC of Peachum's Cabaret Club, M. Referring to the context of our director's adaptation of the play, M is one half of the double act of the MCs, along with C. I would usually describe both M and C as the ringmasters of the club, as the two drive the narrative structure of the play forward, introducing the setting of the play to the audience. In the context of my final piece and the whole play, at the very beginning of the play, my character M says, "Welcome, welcome to Peachum's. We have a wonderful evening of entertainment for you." As an audience member, this would make me understand that Peachum's is obviously some kind of bar or nightclub that has entertainment in it. As the MCs, our job was to additionally introduce the various performing acts such as Peachum's daughter Polly onto the stage. Like ringmasters, M&C's job was to wander around the stage, directing the audience's attention to various parts of the performance space. In doing this, they sort of helped to link the play together. As our characters are not written into the original script of the play, our directors created M&C to have some sort of interaction with audience members throughout the context of the play, by doing things such as joking and clowning around, singing, walking or sitting in the audience's areas and creating general interaction with audience members. The MCs were the sort of hosts of the show. Because of the current circumstances, I adapted the context of my final piece to still take place at the beginning of the play. However, I made the most of using the facilities I have at home, such as filming it on our family boat. Because the piece is filmed on a boat, the intention was that the boat was what the audience had to step on to be taken to Peachum's Cabaret Club. The entrance to the club was by invite only. Therefore, in my piece, M acts like a doorman, collecting invites at the gate before allowing the passengers onto the boat, and a tour guide sitting with the guests inside the boat and explaining where the boat was leading them to. Choices I have made in regards to action and intentions of my character. I wanted M to be a character with a two-sided personality. The first side is this positively boisterous, yet slightly offensive loudmouth who isn't afraid to speak her mind despite being of a lower status to the Peachum family. M also isn't afraid to say what she thinks to some of the regular customers in the club, such as Captain McKeith and his gang, and Inspector Lockett, who is his well-respected detective. On the other hand, I wanted M to have a sinister and slightly threatening side to her personality. I wanted to show that she is someone who is easily influenced by obeying her boss, Peachum, who expects both her, C, and other staff members of the club to join in as thieves by stealing from customers in the club, and also taking a disliking to Captain McKeith and his gang. M is someone who likes to please her boss, yet isn't afraid of being outrageous in her job by often saying what she thinks without any thought of the consequences. Through creating M's mannerisms and actions, I found influence of her movement and posture from character images shown to me by my directors in class. The photo I chose was of a big jazz band around the 60s that related to our character. The photo displayed musicians creating big gestures with their whole body as they held and played their instruments. I copied 3 of the musicians' postures and added hints of it to the way M walked, spoke and came across to others. I embedded this bold movement into her whole stage persona as an MC, as that's how entertainers would have performed around the time our directors wanted the show to be set. The postures allowed me to explore my body by working with space, meaning that every position I make always having space in it, which allowed my character M to become bigger. This helped reflect on the obnoxiously loud side of her personality and enabled me to move in awareness of my body, working in Laban's 360-degree kinesthesia. I made a character choice that every position I made had to always have space in it. For example, space under the arm to give her grand arm gestures, and a long neck to display her confidence, despite being of a lower status to other characters in the cast. Additionally, I applied the director's exercise Edge of Balance to M's physical form. This freed up my body, creating large extended movements that foreshadowed her energetic, yet contrastingly deceitful nature. In class, this was applied to working with Prodigal Theatre's exercise, the waiter's tray, as both with working from home and rehearsal space, I have worked at a 360-degree awareness of my body, creating what the directors call spirals, that would allow us to character build from a neutral state, releasing any tension in the body, and allowing us to turn up the volume and down again to identify character traits. The intention of creating M's movement, working with edge of balance, was to play with how extensive I can make her without the movement looking messy and not thought through. M's relationship with other characters varies depending on who she's speaking to and what mood she's in. When it came to the Peachum family, I made the character intention for M to feel as though she needs to please her bosses all the time. In adapting this intention into my final performance piece, I decided to add in an extract from the original text and change the last line to say Peachum's name instead of the word mine. This was to show that M cares for Peachum and the business, and doesn't want anyone to look down upon the trade Peachum works in. I wanted to subtly display my monologue about how M does care for her bosses, and that there's also a slight aspect of fear of upsetting them, as she knows that they've given her the privilege of having a decently paid full-time job. And she doesn't want to put a foot wrong, especially when it comes to pleasing their daughter Polly, otherwise she knows she'd be out on the street. Her best friend and working partner is C. The two of them have a fantastic double act where they constantly bounce off each other. However, due to M being unpredictable and brash, and C having a more careful and tamed personality, the two are completely contrasting and can sometimes clash because C gets rather frustrated about the fact that he can't control M, and he doesn't know what M is going to say or do next, especially when it comes to dealing with customers. They are quick to argue, but even quicker to make up and be the best of friends. They know so much about how each other work, and despite being in the busy club, they still know where each other are at all times. M's relationship with Captain McKeith is a rather strange one. She likes to rock the boat and cause trouble with his gang, as she knows they're rather dangerous, but weirdly likes the thrill of winding them up. This would have been reflected in the play when M approaches McKeith and sarcastically calls his gang fine friends. When figuring out how to portray the role of M, there were many rehearsal techniques and methods I employed to help me find her entire persona. This include the way she walks, speaks, and comes across to others. Before the module moved to online delivery, an exercise I learned from the directors was the idea of placing an imaginary object related to the character in my hands. When walking around the rehearsal space as M, I would often imagine that I had a microphone in my hand and a top hat on my head. This was of course because M is an MC, and the directors explained that often we as humans create memories or intentions for actions with objects we are used to working with, and sometimes this gets embedded into our body as a sort of habit. For me, this helped me to consider how M's job may create an impact on the way she walks and stands. I wanted the imaginary holding of the microphone in her hand and the top hat to be added into the way I carry myself as an MC. This was shown in the performance video through the way I accentuated my movements, particularly my hands, in a clear and rather frightening manner. A method I used to investigate further into the character M was to find influence from other characters that I believed to have a similar personality to how I wanted M to be portrayed. My first influence was Gene Wilder and his portrayal of Wonka in the Mel Stewart adaptation of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I loved the way he effortlessly turned the song Pure Imagination into a kind of spoken song performance. I wanted to copy this effortless approach into the slight lyric I sang in my piece. Furthermore, like him, Wonka is an extrovert and slightly eccentric character. Another influence recommended by the directors was to look at Ron Moody's portrayal of Fagin in the Carol Reed film Oliver. This again was to look at how he brings spoken word singing into songs such as You've Got to Pick a Pocket or Two and Reviewing the Situation. Additionally, I wanted to add a hint of Ron Moody's rather fantastically sarcastic and charismatic adaptation of Fagin into M's more thief-like, sinister side. How my methods worked in investigating and expressing M. As part of the process in investigating and expressing M, I wanted to find out what her aesthetic was like. In doing this, I wanted my video to be as atmospheric as possible. As M has a rather sinister side to her personality, I wanted to express this, creating a rather dark 1920s horror movie feel to my piece. This meant transforming my version of the Beggar's Opera to being of a rather gothic horror genre. Influence included the silent German expressionist horror film Nosferatu, to help me get a feel for using large expressions and movement whilst also attaining an eerie and curious identity.